sorrows, shower us with happiness. Listen to thy child's prayer. Bless us, Sai, bless us, Sai. Sai is life, Sai is prayer. Sai is gift and Sai is wealth. Sai is bliss, Sai is heaven. Bless us, Sai, bless us, Sai. Sai is contentment, Sai is peace. Sai is God incarnate. Sai is universe, Sai is mercy. Sai is wisdom. Bless us, Sai, bless us, Sai. Sai is righteousness, Sai is deliverance. Sai is absolute reality. Bless us, Sai, bless us, Sai. Sai is Christ, Sai is Nanak. Sai is Hindu, Sai is Muslim. Sai is truth, Sai is nectar. Bless us, Sai, bless us, Sai. Sai is Shiva, Vishnu, Brahma. Sai is simple, loving, caring. Sai is mother, father, guru. Sai is Pran, Sai is soul. Bless us, Sai, bless us, Sai.
Day 2, Chapter 7. Wonderful Incarnation. Sai Baba knew all yogic practices. He was well versed in the 6 processes, including dhoti, stomach cleaning by a moistened piece of linen, 3 inch in breadth and 22.5 inch in length, Khanda Yoga, i.e. separating his limbs and joining them again, and Samadhi, etc. If you think that he was a Hindu, he looked like a Yavan. If you think him to be a Yavan, he looked like a pious Hindu. No one definitely knew whether he was a Hindu or a Mohammedan. He celebrated the Hindu festival of Ram Navami with all due formalities, and at the same time permitted the sandal procession of the Mohammedans. He encouraged wrestling bouts in this festival and gave good prizes to winners. When the Gokul Ashtami came, he got the Gopal Kal ceremony duly performed, and on Eid festivals, he allowed Mohammedans to say their prayers, namaz, in his masjid. Once in the Mohram festival, some Mohammedans proposed to construct a tajia or tabut in the masjid, keep it there for some days, and afterwards take it in procession through the village. Sai Baba allowed the keeping of the tabut for 4 days, and on the 5th day removed it out of the masjid without the least compunction. If we say that he was a Mohammedan, his ears were pierced, i.e. had holes according to Hindu fashion. If you think that he was a Hindu, he advocated the practice of circumcision, though according to Mr. Nana Sahib Chandorkar, who observed him closely, he was not himself circumcised. Vide article in Sai Leela on Baba Hindu Ki Yavan by B.V. Deo, page 562. If you call him Hindu, he always lived in the masjid. If Mohammedan, he had always the duni, sacred fire there, and the following things which are contrary to Mohammedan religion, i.e., grinding on the handmill, blowing of the conch and bells, oblation in the fire, bhajan, giving of food, and worship of Baba's feet by means of arghya, water, were always allowed there. If you think that he was a Mohammedan, the best of Brahmins and Agnihotris, leaving aside their orthodox ways, fell prostrate at his feet. Those who went to make inquiries about his nationality were dumbfounded and were captured by his darshan. So none could definitely decide whether Sai Baba was a Hindu or a Mohammedan. This is no wonder, for he who completely surrenders himself to the Lord by getting rid of his egoism and body consciousness thus becomes one with him and has nothing to do with any questions of caste or nationality. Such a one as Sai Baba was, saw no difference between caste, and even beings and beings. He took meat and fish with fakirs, but did not grumble when dogs touched the dishes with their mouths. Such a unique and wonderful incarnation was Sai Baba. On account of the merits in my past birth, I had the good fortune to sit at his feet and enjoy his blessed company. The joy and delight I derived therefrom was incomparable. In fact, Sai Baba was pure Anand and consciousness. I cannot sufficiently describe him, his greatness and uniqueness. He who took delight at his feet was established in his own self. Many sannyasis, sadhakas, and all sorts of men aspiring for salvation came to Sai Baba. He always walked, talked, and laughed with them, and always uttered with his tongue, Allah Malik, God is the sole owner. He never liked discussion or arguments. He was always calm and controlled, though irritable at times, always preached full Vedanta, and nobody knew till the last who was Baba. Princes and poor people were treated alike by him. He knew the inmost secrets of all, and when he gave expression to them, all were surprised. He was the repository of all knowledge. Still, he feigned ignorance. He also disliked honor. Such were the characteristics of Sai Baba. Though he had a human body, his deeds testified to his godhood. All people considered him as the Lord God in Shirdi. Behavior of Sai Baba. Fool that I am, I cannot describe Baba's miracles. He got almost all the temples in Shirdi repaired. Through Tatya Patil, the temples of Shani, Ganpati, Shankar Parvati, village deity, and Maruti were put in order. His charity was also remarkable. The money he used to collect as dakshina was freely distributed, 20 rupees to some, 15 or 50 rupees to others every day. The recipients thought that this was pure charity money, and Baba wished that it should be usefully employed. People were immensely benefited by having a darshan of Baba. Some became hale and hearty, wicked people were turned into good ones. Kushta, leprosy, was cured in some cases. Many got their desires fulfilled. Without any drops or medicine being put in the eyes, some blind men got back their sight, and some lame ones got back their legs. Nobody could see the end of his extraordinary greatness. His fame spread far and wide, and pilgrims from all sides flocked to Shirdi. Baba sat always near the dhuni and eased himself there, and always sat in meditation, sometimes with and on other times without a bath. He used to tie a white turban on his head and wear a clean dhota round his waist and a shirt on his body. This was his dress in the beginning. He started practicing medicine in the village, examined patients and gave medicines. He was always successful, and he became famous as a hakim, doctor. A curious case may be narrated here. One devotee got his eyeballs quite red and swollen. No doctor was available in Shirdi. The other devotees took him to Baba. Other doctors would use ointments, unguents, cow's milk, and camphorated drugs, etc. in such cases. Baba's remedy was quite unique. He pounded some biba, some carpus anacardium, i.e. marking nuts, and made 2 balls of them, thrust them on in each eye of the patient, and wrapped a cloth bandage round them. Next day, the bandage was removed and water was poured over them in a stream. The inflammation subsided and the pupils became white and clear. Though the eyes are very delicate, the biba caused no smarting, but removed the disease of the eyes. Many such cases were cured, and this is only an instance in point. Baba's yoga practices. Baba knew all the processes and practices of yoga. 2 of them will be described here. 1. Dhoti or cleaning process. Baba went to the well near a banyan tree at a considerable distance from the masjid every 3rd day and washed his mouth and had a bath. On one occasion, he was seen to vomit out his intestines, clean them inside and outside, and place them on a jam tree for drying. There are persons in Shirdi who have actually seen this and who have testified to this fact. Ordinary dhoti is done by a moistened piece of linen, 3 inches broad, 22.5 feet long. This piece is gulped down the throat and allowed to remain in the stomach for about half an hour for being reacted there and then taken out. But Baba's dhoti was quite unique and extraordinary. 2. Khanda Yoga. In this practice, Baba extracted the various limbs from his body and left them separately at different places in the masjid. Once a gentleman went to the masjid and saw the limbs of Baba lying separately at separate places. He was much terrified, and he at first thought of running to the village officers and informing them of Baba being hacked to pieces and murdered. He thought that he would be held responsible as he was the first informant and knew something of the affair, so he kept silent. But next day, when he went to the masjid, he was very much surprised to see Baba hale and hearty and sound as before. He thought that what he had seen the previous day was only a dream. Baba practiced yoga since his infancy, and nobody knew or guessed the proficiency he attained. He charged no fees for his cures. became renowned and famous by virtue of his merits, gave health to many a poor and suffering person. This famous doctor of doctors cared not for his interests, but always worked for the good and welfare of others, himself suffering unbearable and terrible pain many a time in the process. One such instance I give below, which will show the all-pervasiveness and most merciful character of Sai Baba. Baba's all-pervasiveness and mercy. In the year 1910 AD, Baba was sitting near the dhuni on Diwali holiday and warming himself. He was pushing firewood into the dhuni, which was brightly burning. A little later, instead of pushing logs of wood, Baba pushed his arm into the dhuni. The arm was scorched and burnt immediately. This was noticed by the servant Madhava and also by Madhavrao Deshpande, Shama. They at once ran to Baba, and Madhavrao clasped Baba by his waist from behind and dragged him forcibly backward and asked, "Deva, for what have you done this?" Then Baba came to his senses and replied, "The wife of a blacksmith at some distant place was working the bellows of a furnace. Her husband called her. Forgetting that her child was on her waist, she ran hastily, and the child slipped into the furnace. I immediately thrust my hand into the furnace and saved the child. I do not mind my arm being burnt, but I am glad that the life of the child is saved." Leper devotee service. On hearing the news of Baba's hand being burnt from Shama, Madhavrao Deshpande, Mr. Nanasaheb Chandorkar, accompanied by the famous doctor Paramanand of Bombay with his medical outfit consisting of ointments, lint and bandage, etc., rushed to Shirdi and requested Baba to allow Dr. Paramanand to examine the arm and dress the wound caused by the burn. This was refused. Ever since the burn, the arm was dressed by the leper devotee Bhagoji Shinde. His treatment consisted in massaging the burnt part with ghee and then placing a leaf over it and bandaging it tightly with batis, bandages. Mr. Nanasaheb Chandorkar solicited Baba many a time to unfasten the patis and get the wound examined and dressed and treated by Dr. Paramanand, with the object that it may be speedily healed. Dr. Paramanand himself made similar requests, but Baba postponed, saying that Allah was his doctor and did not allow his arm to be examined. Dr. Paramanand's medicines were not exposed to the air of Shirdi, as they remained intact, but he had the good fortune of getting a darshan of Baba. Bhagoji was allowed to treat the hand daily. After some days, the arm healed, and all were happy. Still, we do not know whether any trace of pain was left or not. Every morning, Bhagoji went through this program of loosening the patis, massaging the arm with ghee, and tightly bandaging it again. This went on till Sai Baba's samadhi, death. Sai Baba, a perfect siddha as he was, did not really want this treatment, but out of his love to his devotee, he allowed the upasana, service of Bhagoji, to go on uninterrupted all along. When Baba started Valendi, Bhagoji held an umbrella over him and accompanied him. Every morning when Baba sat near the post close to the dhuni, Bhagoji was present and started his service. Bhagoji was a sinner in his past birth. He was suffering from leprosy. His fingers had shrunk. His body was full of pus and smelling badly. Though outwardly he seemed so unfortunate, he was really very lucky and happy, for he was the premier servant of Baba and got the benefit of his company. Master Kaparde's plague case. I shall now relate another instance of Baba's wonderful Leela. Mrs. Kaparde, the wife of Mr. Dada Saheb Kaparde of Amravati, was staying at Shirdi with her young son for some days. One day the son got high fever, which further developed into bubonic plague. The mother was frightened and felt most uneasy. She thought of leaving the place for Amravati and went near Baba in the evening when he was coming near the Wada, now Samadhi Mandir, in his evening rounds, for asking his permission. She informed him in a trembling tone that her dear young son was down with plague. Baba spoke kindly and softly to her, saying that the sky is beset with clouds, but they will melt and pass off, and everything will be smooth and clear. So saying, he lifted up his kafni to the waist and showed to all present four fully developed buboes as big as eggs, and added, "See how I have to suffer for my devotees. Their difficulties are mine. Seeing this unique and extraordinary deed, Leela, the people were convinced as to how the saints suffer pains for their devotees. The mind of the saints is softer than wax. It is soft in and out as butter. They love their devotees without any idea of gain and regard them as their true relatives. Going to Pandharpur and staying there. I shall now close this chapter after relating a story illustrating how Sai Baba loved his devotees and anticipated their wishes and movements. Mr. Nana Sahib Chandorkar, who was a great devotee of Baba, was Mamlatdar at Nandurbar in Khandesh. He got an order of transfer to Pandharpur. His devotion to Sai Baba bore fruit as he got an order to go and stay at Pandharpur, which is regarded as the Puvainkunta, heaven on earth. Nana Sahib had to take immediate charge, so he left immediately for the place without even writing or informing anybody at Shirdi. He wanted to give a surprise visit to Shirdi, his Pandharpur, see and salute his Vithoba, Baba, and then proceed. Nobody dreamt of Nana Sahib's departure for Shirdi, but Sai Baba knew all about this as his eyes were everywhere, omniscient. As soon as Nana Sahib Chandorkar approached Neemgao, a few miles from Shirdi, there was stir in the masjid at Shirdi. Baba was sitting and talking with Malsapati, Appa Shinde, and Kashiram when he at once said, "Let us all four do some bhajan. The doors of Pandari are open. Let us merrily sing." Then they began to sing in chorus, the burden of the song being, "I have to go to Pandharpur and I have to stay on there, for it is the house of my Lord." Baba sang and the devotees followed him. In a short time, Nana Sahib came there with his family, prostrated before Baba, and requested him to accompany them to Pandharpur and stay with them there. This solicitation was not necessary, as the devotees told Nana Sahib that Baba was already in the mood of going to Pandharpur and staying there. Hearing this, Nana Sahib was moved and fell at Baba's feet. Then, getting Baba's permission, Udi, sacred ashes, and blessings, Nana Sahib left for Pandharpur. There is no end to Baba's stories, but let me now make a halt here, reserving for the next chapter other topics such as importance of human life, Baba's living on alms, Bhai Jabai's service, and other stories. Bow to Shri Sai. Peace be to all.
Chapter 8. Importance of human birth. Sai Baba begging food. Bhai service. Sai Baba's dormitory. His affection for Kushal Chand. As hinted in the last chapter, Hemant Pant now explains at length in his preliminary remarks on the importance of human birth, and then proceeds to relate how Sai Baba begged his food, how Bhai served him, how he slept in the masjid with Tatya Pote Patil and Mahal Sapati, and how he loved Kushal Chand of Rahata. Importance of human birth. In this wonderful universe, God has created billions, 84 lakhs according to Hindu Shastra calculation, of creatures or beings, including gods, demigods, insects, beasts, and men, inhabiting heaven, hell, earth, ocean, sky, and other intermediate regions. Of these, those creatures or souls whose merits preponderate go to heaven and live there till they enjoy the fruits of their actions. And when this is done, they are cast down, while those souls whose sins or demerits preponderate go down to hell and suffer the consequences of their misdeeds for so long a time as they deserve. When their merits and demerits balance each other, they are born on earth as human beings and are given a chance to work out their salvation. Ultimately, when their merits and demerits both drop down, are got rid of completely, they get their deliverance and become free. To put the matter in a nutshell, souls get their birth or transmigrations according to their deeds and intelligence, development of their minds. Special value of the human body. As we all know, four things are common to all creatures, viz. Food, sleep, fear, and sexual union. In the case of man, he is endowed with a special faculty, viz. Knowledge, with the help of which he can attain God vision, which is impossible in any other birth. It is for these reasons that gods envy man's fortune and aspire to be born as men on earth so as to get their final deliverance. Some say that there is nothing worse than the human body, which is full of filth, mucus, phlegm, and dirt, and which is subject to decay, disease, and death. There is no doubt true to a certain extent, but in spite of these drawbacks and defects, the special value of the human body is that man has got the capacity to acquire knowledge. It is only due to human knowledge that one can think of the perishable and transitory nature of the body itself and of the world, and get a disgust for the sense enjoyments, and can discriminate between the unreal and real, and thus attain God vision. So if we reject or neglect the body because it is filthy, we lose the chance of God vision. And if we fondle it and run after sense enjoyments because it is precious, we go to hell. The proper course, therefore, for us to pursue is the following: that the body should neither be neglected nor fondled, but should be properly cared for, just as a traveller on horseback takes care of his pony on the way till he reaches his destination and returns home. Thus the body should ever be used or engaged to attain God vision or self-realization, which is a supreme end of life. It is said that though God created various sorts of creatures, he was not satisfied, for none of them was able to know and appreciate his work. So he had to create a special being, man, and endow him with a special faculty, viz. Knowledge. And when he saw that man was able to appreciate his Leela, marvelous work, and intelligence, he was highly pleased and satisfied. Vidya Bhagavat 11:9-28. So really it is good luck to get human body, better luck to get birth in a Brahmin family, and best one to get an opportunity of having recourse to Sai Baba's feet and surrendering to him. Man's endeavor. Realizing how precious the human life is, and knowing that death is certain and may snatch us at any time, we should be ever alert to achieve the object of our life. We should not make the least delay, but make every possible haste to gain our object. Just as a widower is most anxious to get himself married to a new bride, or just as a king leaves no stone unturned to seek his lost son, so with all earnestness and speed we should strive to attain our end, i.e., self-realization. Casting aside sloth and laziness, warding off drowsiness, we should day and night meditate on the self. If we fail to do this, we reduce ourselves to the level of beasts. How to proceed? The most effective and speedy way to gain our object is to approach a worthy saint or sage, Sadguru, who has himself attained God vision. What cannot be achieved by hearing religious lectures and study of religious works is easily obtained in the company of such worthy souls. Just as the sun alone gives light, which all the stars put together cannot do, so the Sadguru alone imparts spiritual wisdom, which all the sacred books and sermons cannot infuse. His movements and simple talks give us silent advice. The virtues of forgiveness, calmness, disinterestedness, charity, benevolence, control of mind and body, egolessness, etc. are observed by the disciples as they are being practiced in such pure and holy company. This enlightens their minds and lifts them up spiritually. Sai Baba was such a sage or Sadguru. Though he acted as a fakir, mendicant, he was always engrossed in the self. He always loved all beings in whom he saw God or divinity. By pleasures he was not elated. He was not depressed by misfortunes. A king and a pauper were the same to him. He, whose glance would turn a beggar into a king, used to beg his food from door to door in Shirdi. And let us now see how he did it. Baba begging food. Blessed are the people of Shirdi, in front of whose houses Baba stood as a beggar and called out, "O my, give me a piece of bread," and spread out his hand to receive the same. In one hand he carried a tumral, tin pot, and in the other a joli or chodpadri, i.e. a rectangular piece of cloth. He daily visited certain houses and went from door to door. Liquid or semi-liquid things such as soups, vegetables, milk or buttermilk were received in a tin pot, while cooked rice, bread and such solid things were taken in his joli. Baba's tongue knew no taste, as he acquired control over it. So how could he care for the taste of different things collected together? Whatever things he got in his joli and in the tin pot were mixed together and partaken by Baba to his heart's content. Whether particular things were tasty or otherwise was never noticed by Baba, as if his tongue was devoid of the sense of taste altogether. Baba begged till noon, but his begging was very irregular. Some days he went a few rounds, on other days up to 12 noon. The food thus collected was thrown in a kundi, i.e. earthen pot. Dog, cats and crows freely ate from it, and Baba never drove them away. The woman who slept the floor of the masjid took some 10 or 12 pieces of bread to her house, and nobody prevented her from doing so. How could he, who even in dreams never warded off cats and dogs by harsh words and signs, refuse food to a poor, helpless people? Blessed indeed is the life of such noble person. People in Shirdi took him in the beginning for a mad fakir. He was known in the village by his name. How could one who lived on alms by begging a few crumbs of bread be revered and respected? But this fakir was liberal of heart and hand, disinterested and charitable. Tough, he looked fickle and restless from outside. He was firm and steady inside. He was inscrutable. Still, even in that small village, there were a few kind and blessed people who recognized and regarded him as a great soul. One such instance is given below. Bhaijabai's brilliant service. Tatia Kote's mother, Bhaijabai, used to go to the woods every noon with a basket on her head containing bread and vegetable. She roamed in the jungle coos about 3 miles after course, trampling over bushes and shrubs in search of the mad fakir. And after hunting him out, fell at his feet. The fakir sat calm and motionless in meditation while she placed a leaf before him, spread out the eatables, bread, vegetables, etc., thereon and fed him forcibly. Wonderful was her faith and service. Every day she roamed at noon in the jungles and forced Baba to partake of lunch. Her service, upasana or penance, by which name we call it, was never forgotten by Baba till his Maha Samadhi. Remembering fully what service she rendered, Baba benefited her son magnificently. Both the son and mother had great faith in the fakir, who was their god. Baba often said to them that fakir, mendicancy, was the real lordship, as it was everlasting, and the so-called lordship riches were transient. After some years, Baba left off going into the woods and began to live in the village and take his food in the masjid. From that time, Bajabai's troubles of roaming the jungles ended. Dormitory of Trio. Even blessed are the saints in whose heart Lord Vasudeva dwells, and fortunate, indeed, are the devotees who get the benefit of company of such saints. Two such fortunate fellows, Tatya Kote Patil and Bhagat Mahalsapati, equally shared the company of Sai Baba. Baba also loved them equally. These three persons slept in the masjid with their heads towards the east, west, and north, and with their feet touching one another at the center. Stretching their beds, they lay on them, chit-chatting and gossiping about many things till late at midnight. If any one of them showed any sign of sleep, others would wake him up. For instance, if Tatya began to snore, Baba once got up and shook him from side to side and pressed his head. If it was Mahalsapati, he hugged him close, stroked his legs, and kneaded his back. In this way, for full 14 years, Tatya, leaving his parents at home, slept in the masjid on account of his love for Baba. How happy and never to be forgotten were those days. How to measure that love and how to value the grace of Baba. After the passing away of his father, Tatya took charge of the household affairs and began to sleep at home. Kushal Chand of Rahata. Baba loved Ganpat Kote Patil of Shirdi. He equally loved Chandra Bhanashet Marwadi of Rahata. After the demise of Shet, Baba loved his nephew, Kushal Chand, equally or even perhaps more, and watched his welfare day and night, sometimes in a bullock cart, at the other times in a tanga with intimate friends. Baba went to Rahata. People of that village came out with band and music and received Baba at the vez or gate of the village and prostrated before him. Then he was taken into the village with great pomp and ceremony. Kushal Chand took Baba to his house, seated him on a comfortable seat, and gave him a good lunch. They then talked freely and merrily for some time, after which Baba returned to Shirdi, giving delight and blessings to all. Shirdi is midway between an equidistance from Rahata and on one side south of Nivgao and on other north. Baba never went beyond these places during his lifetime. He never saw any railway train nor travelled by it. Still, he knew exactly the timing of arrival and departure of all trains. Devotees who acted according to Baba's instructions, their departure, which were given by him at the time of taking his leave, fared well, while those who disregarded them suffered many a mishap and accident. More about this and other matters will be told in the next chapter. Bow to Shri Sai. Peace be to all.
Chapter 9. Effect of compliance and non-compliance with Baba's order at the time of taking leave. A few instances. Mendicancy and its necessity. Devotees, Dakan's family experiences. Baba fed sumptuously. How? At the end of the last chapter, it was barely stated that the bhaktas who obeyed Baba's orders at the time of taking leave fared well, and those who disobeyed him suffered many a mishap. This statement will be amplified and illustrated with a few striking instances and by other matters dealt with in this chapter. Characteristic of Shirdi pilgrimage. One special peculiarity of Shirdi pilgrimage was this, that none could leave Shirdi without Baba's permission, and if they did, he invited untold sufferings. But if any was asked to quit Shirdi, he could stay there no longer. Baba gave certain suggestions or hints when bhaktas went to bid goodbye and take their leave. These suggestions had to be followed. If they were not followed or were departed from accidents were sure to befall them, who acted contrary to Baba's directions. We give below a few instances. Tatya Kote Patil. Tatya Kote was once going in a tanga to Kopagal Bazaar. He came in a haste to Masjid, saluted Baba and said that he would go to the Kopagal Bazaar. Baba said, don't make haste, stop a little, forget the bazaar, don't go out of the village. On seeing his anxiety to go, Baba asked him to take Shama Madhavrao Deshpande, at least with him. Not minding this direction, Tatya Kote immediately drove his danga. Of the two horses, one, which cost rupees 300, was very active and restless. After passing Seoul, it began to run rashly, got a sprain in its waist and fell down. Tatya was not hurt much, but was reminded of Mother Sai's direction. On another occasion, while proceeding to Golhar village, he disregarded Baba's direction and drove in a tanga, which met with a similar accident. European gentleman. One European gentleman of Mumbai came to Shirdi with an introductory note from Nanasab Chandorkar with some object in view. He was comfortably accommodated in a tent. He wanted to kneel before Baba and kiss his hand. Therefore, he tried thrice to step into the masjid, but Baba prevented him from doing so. He was asked to sit in the open courtyard below and take Baba's darshan from therefrom. Not pleased with the reception he got, he wanted to leave Shirdi at once and came to bid goodbye. Baba asked him to go the next day, not to make a hurry. People also requested him to abide by Baba's direction. Not listening to all this, he left Shirdi in a tanga. The horses fell. The horses ran at first all right, but when Seoul well was passed, a bicycle came in front, on seeing which the horses were frightened and ran fast. The tanga was turned topsy-turvy, and the gentleman fell down once and was dragged from distance. He was immediately rescued, but had to go and lie in Kopagal hospital for the treatment of his injuries. Such experiences were legion, and all the people learnt the lesson that those who disobeyed Baba's instructions met with accidents in one way or the other, and those who obeyed them were safe and happy. The necessity of mendicancy. Now to return to the question of mendicancy. A question may arise in the minds of some that if Baba was such a great personage, God in fact, why should he have recourse in the begging bowl all his lifetime? This question may be considered and replied from two standpoints. Number one, who are fit persons who have the right to live by the begging bowl? Our Shastras say that those persons who, after getting rid of or becoming free from the three main desires, viz. Number one for progeny, number two for wealth, number three for fame, except sannyas, are the fit persons to live by begging alms. They cannot make cooking arrangements and dine at their home. The duty of feeding them is laid on the shoulders of householders. Sai Baba was neither a householder nor vanasprata. He was a celibate sannyasi, i.e. sannyasi from boyhood. His firm conviction was that the universe was his home. He was the Lord Vasudev, the supporter of the universe and the imperishable Brahman. So he had the full right to have recourse of the begging bowl. Number two, now from the standpoint of point one, Panchasuna, the five sins and their atonement, we all know that in order to prepare foodstuffs and meals, the householders have to go through five actions or processes, viz. 1. Kandani, pounding. Number 2. Beshani, grinding. Number 3. Udakumbi, washing pots. Number 4. Marjani, sweeping and cleaning. Number 5. Chuli, lighting the hearths. These processes involve destruction of a whole lot of small insects and creatures. In thus, the householders incur an amount of sin. In order to atone for this sin, our Shastras prescribe 6 kinds of sacrifices. Number 1, Brahma Yajna. Number 2, Veda Dhyanan, offerings to Brahman or the study of the Vedas. Number 3, Pitri Yajna, offerings to the ancestors. Number 4, Dev Yajna, offerings to the gods. Number 5, Bhuta Yajna, offerings to the beings. Number 6, Manushya Atita Yajna, offerings to men or uninvited guests. In these sacrifices enjoyed by the Shastras are duly performed, the purification of their minds is effected, and this helps them to get knowledge and self-realization. Baba, in going from house to house, reminded the inmates of their sacred duty, and fortunate were the people who got the lesson at their home from Baba. Devotees' experiences. Now to return to the other more interesting subject, Lord Krishna has said in Bhagavad Gita, verse 9, chapter 9, verse 26, whosoever devoutly offers to me a leaf, a flower, or fruit or water, of that pure-hearted man, I accept that pious offering. In the case of Sai Baba, if a devotee intended really to offer anything to Sai Baba, if he afterwards forgot to offer the same, Baba reminded him or his friend about the offering and made him present it to him, and then accepted it and blessed the devotee. A few instances are given below. Tarkan family, father and son. Mr. Ramachandra Atmaram alias Baba Sahib Tarkan, formerly a Pratana Samajit, was a staunch devotee of Sai Baba. His wife and son equally loved Baba, or perhaps more. It was once proposed that Master Tarkan should go with his mother to Shirdi and spend his May vacation there, but the son was unwilling to go, so he thought that in case he left his home in Bandra, the worship of Sai Baba in the house would not be properly attended to, as his father, being a Pratana Samajist, would not care to worship Sai Baba's enlarged picture. However, on his father's giving an assurance under oath that he would perform the worship exactly as his son was doing, the mother and the son left for Shirdi on a Friday night. Next day, Saturday, Mr. Tarkan got up early, took his bath, and before proceeding with the puja, prostrated himself before the shrine and said, Baba, I am going to perform the puja exactly as my son has been doing, but please let me know, let it not be a formal drill. So saying, he performed the puja and offered a few pieces of lump sugar as a Naivedya offering. The sugar was distributed at the time of the lunch. That evening and next Sunday, everything went on well. The following Monday was a working day, and it also passed well. Mr. Tarkan, who had never performed puja like this in all his life, felt great confidence within himself that everything was passing on quite satisfactorily, according to the promise given to the son. Next Tuesday, he performed the morning puja as usual and left for his work. Coming home at noon, he found that there was no prasad, sugar, to partake of when the meal was served. He asked the servant cook, who told him that there was no offering made that morning and that he had completely forgotten to perform that part of the puja, offering Naivedya. At this, he left his seat and prostrated himself before the shrine, expressed his regret, at the same time chiding Baba for the want of guidance in making the whole affair a matter or a mere drill. Then he wrote a letter to his son stating the facts and requested him to lay it before Baba's feet and ask his pardon for his neglect. This happened in Bandra on about Tuesday noon. At about the same time, when noon Aarti was just about to commence in Shirdi, Baba said to Mrs. Tarkand, Mother, I had been to your house in Bandra with a view to having something to eat. I found the door locked. I somehow got an entrance inside and found, to my regret, that bowl Mr. Tarkand had left nothing for me to eat. So I have returned unappeased. The lady did not understand this, but the son, who was close by, understood the whole thing, that there was something wrong with the puja in Bandra, and he therefore requested Baba to permit him to go home. Baba refused this, but allowed him to perform puja there. Then the son wrote a letter to his father, stating that all that took place at Shirdi, and implored his father not to neglect the puja at home. Both those letters crossed each other and were delivered to their respective parties the next day. Is that not wonderful, Mrs. Tarkand? Let us now take up the case of Mrs. Tarkand herself. She offered these 3 things, viz. 1. Roasted brinjal eggplant mixed with curds and spice. Number 2. Circular pieces of brinjal fried in ghee. Number 3. Sweet meat ball. Let us see how Baba accepted these. Once Mr. Raghuveer Bhaskar Purander of Bandra, a great devotee of Baba, started for Shirdi with his family. Mrs. Tarkan went to Mrs. Purandar and gave her 2 brinjals and requested her to prepare bharit of 1 brinjal and kacharia of the other. When she went to Shirdi and served Baba with them. After reaching Shirdi, Mrs. Purandar went with her dish of bharit to the masjid when Baba was just sitting for meals. Baba found the bharit very tasty, so he distributed it to all and said that he wanted kacharia now. A word was sent to Radhakrishna Mai. Baba wanted kacharia. She was in a fix, as that was no season of brinjals. How to get brinjals was the question. When an inquiry was made as to who brought the bharit, it was found that Mrs. Purandar was also entrusted with the duty of serving kacharia. Everybody then came to know the significance of Baba's inquiry regarding kacharia and was wonderstruck at Baba's all-pervasive knowledge. In December 1915 AD, one Govind Balaram Mankar wanted to go to Shirdi to perform the obsequies of his father. Before he left, he came to see Mr. Tarkan. Then Mrs. Tarkan wanted to send something with him to Baba. She searched the whole house, but nothing was found except a peda, which had already been offered as a nevedya. The boy Govind was in mourning. Still out of the great devotion for Baba, she sent the peda with him, hoping that Baba would accept it and eat it. Govind went to Shirdi and saw Baba, but forgot to take the peda with him. Baba simply waited. When again he went to Baba in the afternoon, he went empty-handed, without the peda. Baba could wait no longer and therefore did ask him straight, "What did you bring for me?" Nothing was the reply. Baba asked him again. The same reply came forth again. Then Baba asked him the leading question, "Did not the mother, Mrs. Tarkat, give some sweetmeat for me at the time of your starting?" The boy then remembered the whole thing. He left abashed, asking Baba's pardon, ran to his lodging, brought the peda and gave it to Baba. As soon as Baba got it in his hand, he put it in his mouth and gulped it down. Thus the devotion of Mrs. Tarkan was recognized and accepted. As men believe in me, so do I accept them. Gita 4, chapter 4, verse 11 was proved in this case. Baba fed sumptuously how? Once Mrs. Tarkan was staying in a certain house in Shirdi. At noon, meals were ready and dishes were being served when a hungry dog turned up and began to bark. Mrs. Tarkan got up at once and threw a piece of bread, which the dog gulped down with great relish. In the afternoon, when she went to the masjid and sat at some distance, Sai Baba said to her, "Mother, you have fed me sumptuously up to my throat. My afflicted Brahma's life forces have been satisfied. Ever act like this, and this will stand you in good stead. Sitting in this masjid, I shall never speak untruth. Take pity on me like this. First give bread to the hungry, and then eat yourself. Note this well." She could not at first understand the meaning of what Baba said, so she replied, "Baba, how could I feed you? I am myself dependent on others and take my food from them on payment." Then Baba replied, "Eating the lovely bread, I am heartily contented, and I am still belching. The dog which you saw before meals, to which you gave the piece of bread, is one of me. So also other creatures, cats, pigs, flies, dogs, etc., are one with me. I am roaming in all their forms. He who sees me in all these creatures is my beloved. So abandon the sense of duality and distinction and serve me as you did today." Drinking these nectar-like words, she moved. Her eyes were bedimmed with tears. Her throat was choked with her joy knew no bounds. Moral. See God in all beings. In the moral of this chapter, the Upanishads, the Gita, and the Bhagavad all exhort us to perceive God or divinity in all creatures by the instance given at the end of this chapter and others too numerous to mention. Sai Baba has practically demonstrated to us to put the Upanishadic teachings into practice. In this way, Baba stands as the best exponent or teacher of the Upanishadic doctrines. Bow to Shri Sai, peace to all.
Chapter 10. Sai Baba's mode of life, his sleeping, board, his stay in Shirdi, his teaching, his humility, the easiest path. Remember him, Sai Baba, always with love, for he was engrossed in doing good to all.
As the confrontation widens between the center and the Mamta couple, the man at the center of it all.
Sorry, getting some background noise. Shall I continue?
Also, farmer unions are threatening to intensify the process this weekend, even as the holding company faces in damage control. But just why are the farmers of Punjab so angry? We have special ground report and
Sister Rashmi, please unmute yourself. Continue.
Okay, I'll start again because it was just literally the beginning. So, Chapter 10, Sai Baba's mode of life, his sleeping, board, his stay in Shirdi, his teachings, his humility, the easiest path. Remember him, Sai Baba, always with love, for he was engrossed in doing good to all, and always abided in his self. To remember him only is to solve the riddle of life and death. This is the best and easiest of sadhanas as it involves no expenditure. A little exertion here brings great rewards. So as long as our senses are sound, we should minute by minute practice this sadhana. All other gods are illusory. Guru is the only God. If we believe in Sadguru's holy feet, he can change our fortune for the better. If we serve him nicely, we get rid of our samsara. We need not study any philosophy like the Nyaya and the Mimamsa. If we make him our helmsman, we can easily cross over the sea of all our pains and sorrows. As we trust the helmsman in crossing rivers and seas, so we have to trust our Sadguru in getting over the ocean of worldly existence. The Sadguru looks to the intense feeling and devotion of his devotees, endows them with knowledge and eternal bliss. In the last chapter, Baba's mendicancy and devotees' experiences and other subjects are dealt with. Let the readers now hear where and how Baba lived, how he slept, and how he taught, etc. Baba's wonderful bedstead. Let us first see where and how Baba slept. Mr. Nana Sahib Dengale brought for Sai Baba a wooden plank, amount 4 cubits in length and only a span in breadth, for sleeping upon. Instead of keeping the plank on the floor and then sleeping on it, Baba tied it like a swing to the rafters of the masjid with old shreds or rags and commenced to sleep upon it. These rags were so thin and worn out that it was a problem how they could bear or support even weight of the plank itself, let alone the weight of Baba. But somehow or other, it was Baba's sheer leela that the worn out rags did sustain the plank with the weight of Baba on it. On the 4 corners of planks, Baba lighted panatis, earthen lamps, each one at each corner, kept them burning the whole night. It was a sight for the gods to see Baba sitting or sleeping on this plank. It was a wonder to all how Baba got up and down the plank. Out of curiosity, many careful observers kept watching the process of mounting and dismounting, but none succeeded. As crowds began to swirl, so to detect this wonderful feat, Baba one day broke the plank into pieces and threw it away. Baba had all the 8 Siddhis powers at his command. He never practiced nor prayed for them. They came to him naturally as a result of his perfection. Sagun manifestation of Brahman. Though Sai Baba looked like a man, 3.5 cubits in length, still he dwelt in the hearts of all. Inwardly, he was unattached and indifferent, but outwardly, he longed for public welfare. Inwardly, most disinterested, he looked outwardly full of desires for the sake of his devotees. Inwardly, an abode of peace, he looked outwardly restless. Inwardly, he had the state of Brahman. Outwardly, he acted like a devil. Inwardly, he had the state of a Brahman. Outwardly, he acted like a devil. Inwardly, he looked Advaita, union or monism. Outwardly, he got entangled with the world. Sometimes he looked on all with affection, and at times he threw stones to them. Sometimes he scolded them, while at times he embraced them and was calm, composed, tolerant, and well balanced. He always abided and was engrossed in the self and was well disposed towards his bhaktas. He always sat on one asana and never travelled. His band was a small stick which he always carried in his hand. He was calm, being thought free. He never cared for wealth and fame, lived on begging. Such a life he led. He always uttered, Allah Malik, God, the real owner. Entire and unbroken was his love for the bhaktas. He was a mine or storehouse for self-knowledge and full of divine bliss. Such was the divine form of Sai Baba, boundless, endless, and undifferentiated. One principle which envelops the whole universe, from the stone pillar to Brahma, incarnated in Sai Baba. The really meritorious and fortunate people got this treasure trove in their hands, while those people who are not knowing the real worth of Sai Baba took or take him to be a man, mere human being, were and are indeed miserable. His stay in Shirdi and probably birth date. No one knew or know the parents an exact birth date of Sai Baba, but it can be approximately determined by his stay in Shirdi. Baba first came to Shirdi when he was a young lad of 16 and stayed there for 3 years. Then, all of a sudden, he disappeared for some time. After some time, he reappeared in the Nizam state near Aurangabad and again came to Shirdi with the marriage party of Chand Patil. When he was 20 years old, since then, he stayed in Shirdi continuously for a period of 60 years, after which Baba took his Mahasamadhi in the year 1918. From this, we can say that the year of Baba's birth is approximately 1838 AD. Baba's mission and advice. Saint Ramdas, he was from 1608 to 1681. He flourished in the 17th century and fulfilled to a great extent his mission of protecting cows and Brahmins against the Yavanas, Mohammedans. But within 2 centuries after him, the split between the two communities, Hindus and Mohammedans, widened again, and Sai Baba came to bridge the gulf. His constant advice to all was to this effect: Brahma, the god of Hindus, and Rahim, the god of Mohammedans, were one and the same. There was not the slightest difference between them. Then why should their devotees quarrel amongst themselves? You ignorant folk, children, join hands and bring both the communities together. Act sanely, and thus you will gain your object of national unity. It is not good to dispute and argue. So don't argue, don't emulate others. Always consider your interest and welfare. The Lord will protect you. Yoga, sacrifice, penance, and knowledge are the means to attain God. If you do not succeed in this by any means, vain is your birth. If anyone does any evil unto you, do not retaliate. If you can do anything, do some good unto other. This, in short, was Sai Baba's advice to all. And this will stand in good stead, both in material and spiritual matters. Sai Baba as Sadguru. There are gurus and gurus. There are many so-called gurus who go about from house to house with cymbals and veena in their hands and make a show of their spirituality. They blow mantras onto the ears of their disciples and extract money from them. They profess to teach piety and religion to their disciples, but are themselves impious and irreligious. Sai Baba never thought of making the least show of his worth, piety, body consciousness. He had great love for his disciples. There are two kinds of gurus. One, niyat, appointed or fixed, and two, aniyat, unappointed or general. The latter, by the advice, develop the good qualities in us, purify our hearts, and set us on the path of salvation. But contact with the former dispels our quality, sense of difference, and establishes us in unity by making us realize, Thou art that. There are various gurus imparting to us various kinds of worldly knowledge, but he who fixes us in our nature, self, and carries us beyond the ocean of worldly existence is a Sadguru. Sai Baba was such a Sadguru. His greatness is undescribable. If anybody went to take his darshana, he, without being asked, would give every detail of his past, present, and future life. He saw divinity in all beings. Friends and foes were alike to him, disinterested and equal balance. He obliged the evildoers. He was the same in prosperity and adversity. No doubt ever touched him. Though he possessed the human body, he was not in the least attached to his body or house. Though he looked embodied, he was really disembodied, that is, free in this very life, this every life. Blessed are the people of Shirdi who worship Sai as their God, while eating, drinking, working in their backyards and fields, and doing various household works. They always remembered Sai and sang his glory. They knew no other God except Sai. What to speak of the love, the sweetness of the love of the women of Shirdi. They were quite ignorant, but the pure love inspired them to compose poems or songs in their simple rural language. Letters or learning they had done. Still, one can discern real poetry in their simple songs. It is not intelligence, but love that inspires real poetry as such. Real poetry is a manifestation of true love, and this can be seen and appreciated by intelligent listeners. Collection of these folk songs is desirable, and Baba willing, some fortunate devotee may undertake the task of collecting and publishing these folk songs, either in the Sai Leela magazine or separately the book form. Baba's humility. Lord or Bhagwan is said to have 6 qualities, viz. Fame, wealth, non-attachment, knowledge, grandeur, and generosity. Baba had all these in him. He incarnated in flesh for the sake of the bhaktas. Wonderful was his grace and kindness. He drew the devotees to him, or how else one could have known him. For the sake of his bhaktas, Baba spoke such words as the goodness of speech dare not utter. Here's a specimen. Baba spoke very humbly as follows. Slaves of slaves, I'm your debtor. I'm satisfied at your darshan. It is a great favor that I saw your feet. I'm an insect in your excreta. I consider myself blessed thereby. What humility is this? If anybody would think that by publishing this, any disrespect was shown to Sai, we beg his pardon, and to atone for this we sing and repeat Baba's name. Though Baba seemed outwardly to enjoy sense objects, he had not the least flavor in them, nor even the consciousness of enjoying them. Though he ate, he had no taste, and though he saw, he never felt any interest in what he saw. Regarding passion, he was as perfect a celibate as Hanuman. He was not attached to anything. He was pure consciousness, the resting place of desire, anger, and other feelings. In short, he was disinterested, free, and perfect. A striking instance may be cited in illustration of this statement. Nanavali. There was in Shirdi a very quaint and queer fellow by name Nanavali. He looked to Baba's work and affairs. He once approached Baba, who was seated on his gadi seat, and asked him to get up, as he wanted to occupy the same. Baba at once got up and left the seat, which he occupied. After sitting there a while, Nanavali got up and Baba asked Baba to take his seat. Then Baba sat on the seat, and Nanavali fell on his feet and then went away. Baba did not show the slightest displeasure in being dictated to and ousted. This Nanavali loved Baba so much that he breathed his last on the 13th day of Baba's taking Mahasamadhi. The easiest path. Hearing the stories of the saints and being in their company. Though Sai Baba acted outwardly like an ordinary man, his actions showed extraordinary intelligence and skill. Whatever he did was done for the good of his devotees. He never prescribed any asana, regulation of breathing, or any rites to his bhaktas, nor did he blow any mantra into their ears. He told them to leave off all cleverness and always remember Sai, Sai. If you did that, he said, all your shackles would be moved away and you would be free. Sitting between 5 fires, sacrifices, chanting, eightfold yoga are possible for the Brahmins only. They are of no use to the other classes. The function of the mind is to think. It cannot remain for a minute without thinking. If you give it a sense object, it will think about it. If you give it a guru, it will think about guru. This is a natural remembrance, worship, and kirtan of Sai. Hearing the stories of the saints is not so difficult as the other sadhanas mentioned above. Stories remove all fear of this samsara, worldly existence, and take you onto the spiritual path. So listen to these stories, meditate on them, and assimilate them. If this is done, not only the Brahmins, but women and lower classes will get pure and holy. You may do or attend to your worldly duties, but give your mind to Sai and his stories, and then he's sure to bless you. This is the easiest path. But why do not all take to it? The reason is that without God's grace, we do not get the desire to listen to the stories of saints. With God's grace, everything is smooth and easy. Hearing the stories of the saints is, in a way, keeping their company. The importance of the company of saints is very great. It removes our body consciousness and egoism, destroys completely the chain of our birth and death, cuts asunder all the knots of the heart, and takes us to God, who is pure consciousness. It certainly increases our non-attachment to sense objects and makes us quiet in. We conclude this chapter with meditation on Sai's form. He, the beautiful, and handsome Sai, standing on the edge of the masjid and distributing udi to each and every bhakta with a view to his welfare. He who thinks the world as naught and who is ever engrossed in supreme bliss, before him we humbly prostrate ourselves. Bow to Shri Sai, peace to be all.
Chapter 11. Let us now in this chapter describe the manifested Sagun Brahman Sai, how he was worshipped and how he controlled the elements. Sai as Sagun Brahman. There are two aspects of God or Brahman, the unmanifested Nirgun and the manifested Sagun. The Nirgun is formless, while the Sagun is with form, though both denote the same Brahman. Some prefer to worship the former, some the latter. As stated in the Gita, chapter 12, the worship of the latter is easy and preferable. As man has got a form, body, senses, etc., it is natural and easy for him to worship a God with form. Our love and devotion do not develop unless we worship Sagun Brahman for a certain period of time, and as we advance, it leads us to the worship, meditation of Nirgun Brahman. So let us start with Sagun worship. Image, altar, fire, light, sun, water, Brahman are the 7 objects of worship. But Sadguru is better than all these. Let us on this occasion bring to our mind the form of Sai, who was non-attachment, incarnate, and who was a resting place for his wholehearted devotees. Our faith in his words is the seat of asan, and our sankalpa, determination to start and finish the puja, is the abandonment of all our desires. Some say that Sai was a Bhagavad Bhakta, devotee of the Lord. Others say he was a Mahabhagavad, a great devotee. But to us, he is God incarnate. He was extremely forgiving, never irritable, straight, soft, tolerant, and content beyond comparison. Though he looked embodied as having the form, he was really disembodied, emotionless, unattached, and internally free. The Ganges on its way to the sea cools and refreshes the creatures affected with heat, gives life to the crops and trees, and quenches the thirst of many. Similarly, saints, souls like Sai, while they live their own life, give solace and comfort to all. Lord Krishna has said that the saint is my soul, my living image. I am he, or he is my pure form being. This indescribable Shakti or power of God, known as pure existence, knowledge, and bliss, incarnated in the form of Sai in Shirdi. The Shruti, Taittiriya Upanishad, describes Brahman as bliss. This we read or hear daily in books, but the devout people experienced this Brahman or bliss in Shirdi. Baba, the support of all, required no prop or support asan from anybody. He always used a piece of sackcloth for his seat, which was covered with a small, beautiful bed by his bhaktas, and a bolster placed by them as a rest to his back. Baba respected the feelings of his devotees and allowed them to worship him as they liked. Some waved chamara or fans before him, some played on musical instruments, some washed his hands and feet, some others applied scent and chandan. Some gave betel nut with leaves and other things, and some others offered Naivedya. Though he looked like living in Shirdi, he was present everywhere. This all-pervasiveness of his was daily experienced by his devotees. Our humble prostration to this all-pervasive Sadguru. Dr. Pandit's worship. One Dr. Pandit, a friend of Tata Saheb Nolkar, once came to Shirdi for Baba's darshan. After saluting Baba, he stayed in the masjid for some time. Baba asked him to go to Dadabhat Kalkar. He went to Dadabhat, by whom he was well received. Then Dadabhat left his house for puja and Dr. Pandit accompanied him. Dadabhat worshipped Baba. Nobody until then dared to apply sandal paste to Baba's forehead. Only Mahal Sapti used to apply it to his throat. But this simple-hearted, devout Dr. Pandit took Dababhat's dish containing puja materials and taking sandal paste out of it, drew a tripundra, that is, 3 horizontal lines on Baba's forehead. To the surprise of all, Baba kept silent without uttering a single word. Then Dababhat that evening asked Baba, "How is it that though you object to this sandal paste being applied by others to your forehead, but you allow Dr. Pandit to do so now?" Baba replied that Dr. Pandit believed him to be the same as his guru Raghunath Maharaj of Babeshwar, known as Kaka Puranik, and he applied the paste to his forehead as he was doing to his guru. Hence, he could not object. On inquiry, Dr. Pandit told Dadabhat that he took Baba as his guru Kaka Puranik, and hence he marked the Tripundra on Baba's forehead, as he did on his guru's head. Though Baba allowed the devotees to worship him as they pleased, still sometimes he acted in a strange way. Sometimes he threw away the puja dish and was wrath incarnate, and then who would approach him? Sometimes he scolded the devotees, at times he looked softer than wax, a statue of peace and forgiveness. Though he seemed to shake with anger and his red eyes rolled round and round, still he was internally a stream of affection and motherly love. Immediately he called out his devotees and said that, in ever angry with his devotees, that if mothers kicked their children and if the sea turned back the rivers, he would neglect the devotees' welfare, that he, the slave of his devotees, always stood by them and responded to them whenever they called upon him, and he always longed for their love. Haji Siddiq Falke. There was no knowing when Baba would accept a devotee. That depended on his sweet will. Siddiq Falke's story is to the point. One Mohammedan gentleman by the name of Siddiq Falke of Kalyan, after making a pilgrimage to Mecca and Medina, came to Shirdi. He lived in a chowdi facing north and sat in the open courtyard of the masjid. For 9 months, Baba ignored him and did not allow him to step into the masjid. Falke felt much disconsolate and did not know what to do. Somebody advised him not to be disappointed, but to try to approach Baba through Shama, Madhavarao Deshpande, a close and intimate devotee of Baba. He told him that as they approached the gods Shiva through his servant and devotee Nandi, so Baba should be approached through Shama. Falke liked the idea and implored Shama to intercede for him. Shama agreed and on a convenient occasion spoke to Baba about him thus: "Baba, why don't you allow the old Haji to step into the masjid? While so many persons freely come and go after taking your darshan, why not bless him once?" Baba replied, "Shama, you are too young to understand things. If the fakir, Allah, does not allow, what can I do? Without His grace, who will climb into the masjid? Well, go to him and ask him whether he will come to the narrow footpath near the Barwi. Well, Shama went and returned with an affirmative answer. Again Baba said to Shama, ask him whether he is willing to pay me the sum of rupees 40,000 in 4 installments. Shama went and returned with the answer that he was willing to pay even 40 lakhs. Again Baba said to Shama, we are going to butcher a goat in the masjid, so asking whether he would like to have mutton, haunch or testicles of the goat. Shama returned with the answer that Haji would be happy to receive a small crumb from Baba's Columba mud pot. Hearing this, Baba got excited and with his hands threw away the earthen jars and the Columba and straightway advanced to the Haji and lifting his kafni up with his hand said, why do you brag and fancy yourself great and pose yourself as an old Haji? Do you read Quran like this? You are proud of your pilgrimage to Mecca, but you do not know me. Being thus scolded, the Haji was confounded. Baba then went back to the masjid, purchased a few baskets of mangoes and sent them to Haji. Then again Baba went to the Haji and taking out rupees 55 from his pocket, gave them in Haji's hand. Henceforth, Baba loved the Haji, invited him for meals, and Haji thereafter came into the masjid whenever he liked. Baba gave him at times some rupees, and thus the Haji was enlisted in Baba's darbar. Baba's control over the elements. We shall close this chapter after describing 2 incidents showing Baba's control over the elements. The first one, once at evening time, there was a terrible storm at Shirdi. The sky was overcast with thick black clouds. The winds began to blow forcibly. The clouds roared and the lightning began to flash, and the rains began to descend in torrents. In a short time, the whole place was flooded with water. All the creatures, birds, beasts, and men got terribly frightened, and they all flocked to the masjid for shelter. There are many local deities in Shirdi, but none of them came to their help. So they all prayed to Baba, their God, who was fond of their devotion to intercede and quell the storm. Baba was much moved. He came out and standing at the edge of the masjid, addressed the storm in a loud, thunderous voice. Stop, stop your fury and calm at the calm. In a few minutes, the rains subsided, the winds ceased to blow, and the storm came to a stop. Then the moon rose in the sky, and the people then went back home well pleased. The second incident. On another occasion, at noon, the fire in the Duni began to burn brightly. Its flames were seen to be reaching the rafters above. People who were sitting in the masjid did not know what to do. They dared not ask Baba to pour water or do anything to quench the flames. But Baba soon came to realize what was happening. He took up his satka, short stick, and dashed it against a pillar in front, saying, "Get down, be calm." At each stroke of satka, the flames began to lower and slow down, and in a few minutes, the Duni became calm and normal. This is our Sai, an incarnation of God. He will bless any man who will prostrate and surrender himself to him. He who will read the stories of this chapter daily with faith and devotion will soon be free from the calamities, not only this, but always attached and devoted to Sai. He will get very soon God vision, all his desires will be fulfilled, and being ultimately desireless, will attain supreme. Amen. Bow to Shri Sai. Peace be to all.
Chapter 12 Saint's Mission. We have seen before the purpose or object of divine incarnation is to protect the good and destroy the wicked. But the mission of the saints is quite different. To them, the good and the wicked are the same. First they draw evildoers and set them on the right path. There are Augusti to destroy Pausagar, the ocean of worldly existence, or the sun to destroy the darkness of ignorance. The God dwells in the saints. In fact, they are not different from him. Our Sai is one of these. We incarnated for the welfare of our devotees. Supreme in knowledge and surrounded with the divine aura, he loved all beings equally. He was unattached, vows and friends, kings and pauper, all were the same to him. Here he prowess for the sake of devotees. He gave his stock of merits and was ever alert to them, helped them. But the devotees could never approach him unless he meant to receive them. If the appointed time did not come, they did not remember Baba and his Leelas could not reach their ears. Then how could they think of seeing him? Some men desired to see Sai Baba, but they did not get the opportunity to take this darshan till his Mahasamadhi. There are many such persons whose desires for Baba's darshan was not thus satisfied. If these persons, believing in him, listen to his Leela, their quest for darshan will be to a great extent satisfied by his Leelas. Even if some persons went there by Sikh luck and took Baba's darshan, were they able to stay there longer? No. Nobody could go there on their own accord, and nobody could stay there longer if he did not wish so. They could stay there so long as Baba permitted them to stay, and had to leave the place when asked to do so by him. So everything depended on Baba's divine will. Kaka Mahajani. Once Kaka Mahajani went to Shirdi from Mumbai. He wanted to stay there for 1 week and enjoy the Gokul Ashtami festival. As soon as he took Baba's darshan, Baba asked him, "When are you returning home?" He was rather surprised at this question, but he had to give an answer. He said he would go home when he ordered him to do so. Then Baba said, "Go tomorrow." Baba's word was so law and had to be obeyed. Kaka Mahajani therefore left Shirdi immediately. When he went to his office in Mumbai, he found his employer anxiously waiting for him. His Munim, that is the manager, suddenly fell ill, hence Kaka's presence was absolutely necessary. He had sent a letter to Kaka at Shirdi, which was redirected to him in Mumbai. Bhau Sahib Dumal. Now listen to another story. Once Bhau Sahib Dumal was going to Nipat for a case. On the way he came to Shirdi, took Baba's darshan and wanted to proceed to Nipat immediately. But Baba did not permit him to do so. He made him stay in Shirdi for a week or more. In the meanwhile, the magistrate at Nipat suffered intensely from pain in his abdomen and the case was adjourned. Mr. Dhumal was then allowed to go and attend his case. It went on for some months and tried by 4 magistrates. Ultimately, Mr. Dhumal won the case and his client was acquitted. Mrs. Namankar. Mrs. Nanasab Namankar, Battadar of Nimon, an honorary magistrate, was staying at Shirdi with his wife. Mr. and Mrs. Namankar were spending most of the time in the masjid with Baba and serving him. It so happened that their son fell ill in Bhelapur, and the mother decided, with Baba's consent, to go to Bhelapur and see her son and other relatives to stay there for a few days. But Mr. Nanasab asked her to return the next day. The lady was in a fix and did not know what to do. But her godsire came for her help. While leaving Shirdi, she went to Baba, who was standing in front of the Satya Vara with Mr. Nanasab and others, prostrated at his feet and asked his permission to go. Baba said to her, Go, go, quickly, be calm. And unperturbed, stayed comfortably at Belpur for 4 days. See all your relatives, then return to Shirdi. How opportune were Baba's words. Mr. Nana Sahib's proposal was overruled by Baba's decree. Mule Sastri of Nasik, an orthodox Agnihotri Brahmin of Nasik. Mule Sastri, who had studied the sixth Sastra and was well versed in astrology and palmistry, once came to Shirdi to see Bapu Sahib Bhuti, the famous millionaire of Nagpur. After seeing him, he and others went to see Baba in the masjid. Baba bought various fruits and other things from the vendors with his own money and distributed them to the people present in the masjid. Baba used to press the mango on all sides so skillfully that when Baba sucked it, he got the pulp at once in his mouth and could throw away the seed. Plantains were peeled off by Baba and the pulp was distributed to the devotees while the skins were retained for Baba himself. Mul Sastri, as palmist, wanted to examine Baba's palm and asked him to extend his hand. Baba ignored his request and gave 4 plantains to him. Then they all returned to the Vara and Mul Sastri bathed, wore fresh clothes and started the routine duties, viz. Agnihotri, etc. Then Baba, as usual, started for Lendi and said, "Take some geru, that is the red miry substance used to dye clothes in saffron color. We shall today don saffron-colored cloth." None understood what Baba meant. Then after some time, when Baba retained and preparation for the noon arti were being made, Bapu Sahib Jog asked Mula Sastri whether he would accompany him for the arti. He replied, when he would see Baba in the afternoon, Baba sat on his seat, was worshipped by devotees, and arti commenced. Then Baba said, "Get some dakshina from the new Nasik Brahmin." Bhuti himself went to the Vara to get dakshina, and when he gave Baba the message to Mul Sastri, he was sorely perplexed. He thought in his mind thus, "I am a poor Agnihotri Brahmin. Why should I pay dakshina? Baba may be the great saint. I am not his dependent." But since the great saint like Sai Baba was asking for dakshina through a millionaire like Bhuti, he could not refuse. So leaving his routine unfinished, he started with Bhuti for masjid. Thinking himself holy and the masjid otherwise, he remained at a distance, and after joining his palms, threw flowers at Baba from there. Then lo, all of a sudden, he saw Baba, but his late Guru Golab Swami was there. He was wonderstruck. Could this be a dream? No, it was not, as he was wide awake. But how could the late Guru Golab be there? He was speechless for some time. He pinched himself and thought again, but could not reconcile the fact that late Guru Golab being in this masjid. Ultimately, leaving aside all doubts, he went up, fell at the Guru's feet, and then stood there, folded hands. Other people sang Baba's arti, while Mul Sastri chanted loudly his Guru's name. Then, casting off all the pride of caste and sacredness, he fell at his Guru's feet and closed his eyes. When he got up, opened his eyes, he saw Baba asking for dakshina. Seeing Baba blissfully formed and his inconceivable power, Mul Sastri forgot himself. He was extremely pleased with his eyes were full of tears of joy. He again saluted Baba and gave the dakshina. He said that his doubt was removed and he saw his own Guru. On seeing this wonderful Leela of Baba, all the people, including Mul Sastri, were much moved, and they realized the meaning of Baba's words. "Bring Geru, we shall don saffron-colored cloth." Such is the wonderful Leela of Baba. Doctor. Once Mamaltadar came to Shirdi with a doctor friend of his. The doctor said that his deity was Ram and that he would not bow before Muhammadin, and so he was unwilling to go to Shirdi. The Mamaltadan replied, and nobody would press him to bow down, so he should come and give the pleasure of his company. Accordingly, they reached Shirdi and went to the masjid for Baba's darshan. All were wonderstruck to see the doctor going ahead and saluting Baba. Then asked him he forgot his resolve and bowed down to a Mussalman. Then the doctor replied that he saw his beloved deity Ram on the seat. and therefore prostrated himself before him. Then as he was saying, he again saw Sai Baba there, being dismayed here again. Is this a dream? How could he be a Mohammedan? He is a great yoga sampana, full of yoga avatar. Next day, he made a vow and began to fast. He absented himself from the masjid, resolving not to go there until Baba blessed him. 3 days passed, and on the 4th day, a close friend of his from Gandesh turned up with him. He went to the masjid for Baba's darshan. After the salutation, Baba asked him whether anybody had gone to call him so that he can come. Hearing the vital question, the doctor was removed. The same night, he was blessed by Baba, and he experienced the bliss supreme in his sleep. Then he left for his town, where he remained in the same state for a fortnight. Thus his devotion for Sai Baba increased many folds. The moral of the stories mentioned above, especially that of Mul Sastri, is that we should have firm faith in our Guru and on none else. More Leelas of Sai Baba will be described in the next chapter. Bow to Shri Sai. Peace to be all.
Chapter 13. More Leelas, diseases cured, Bhimji Patil, Bala Shimpi, Bapu Sahib Bhuti, Alandi Swami, Kaka Mahajani, Dato Pant of Harta. The inscrutable power of Maya. Baba's words were always short, pithy, deep, full of meaning, efficient, and well balanced. He was ever content and never cared for anything. He said, "As I have become a fakir, I have no house or wife, and though leaving off all cares, I have stayed at one place. The inevitable Maya teases me often. Though I forgot myself, I cannot forget her. She always envelops me. This Maya, elusive power of the Lord, Shri Hari, teases God, Brahma, and others. Then what to speak of a poor fakir like me? Those who take refuge in the Lord will be freed from her clutches with his grace." In such terms, Baba spoke about the power of Maya. Lord Shri Krishna has said to Uddhava in the Bhagavad that the saints are his living forms. And see what Baba has said for the welfare of his devotees. Those who are fortunate and whose demerits have vanished, take you over the 7 seas. Believe in these words and you will be certainly benefited. I do not need any paraphernalia of worship, either 8-fold or 16-fold. I rest there where there is full devotion. Now read what Sai, the friend of those who surrendered themselves to him, did for their welfare. Bhimaji Patil. Bhimaji Patil of Narayangaon, Taluka Junar, District Pune, suffered in the year 1909 from a severe and chronic chest disease, which ultimately developed into tuberculosis. He tried all sorts of bhattis, remedies, but to no effect. Losing all hopes, he ultimately prayed to God, "O Lord Narayana, help me now. It is a well-known fact that when our circumstances are well off, we do not remember God. But when calamities and adversities overtake us, we are reminded of him." So Bhimaji now turned to God. It occurred to him that he should consult Mr. Nanasaheb Chandorkar, a great devotee of Baba, in this respect. So he wrote to him a letter giving all the details of his malady and asking for his opinion. In reply, Mr. Nanasaheb wrote to him that there was only one remedy left, and that was to have recourse to Baba's feet. Relying on Mr. Nanasaheb's advice, he made preparations for going to Shirdi. He was brought to Shirdi and taken to the masjid and placed before Baba. Mr. Nanasaheb and Shama, Madhav Rao Deshpande, were then present. Baba pointed out that the disease was due to the previous evil karma and was not at first disposed to interfere. But the patient cried out in despair that he was helpless and sought refuge in him as he was his last hope and prayed for mercy. Then Baba's heart melted and he said, "Stay, cast off your anxiety, your sufferings have come to an end. However oppressed and troubled one may be, as soon as he steps in the masjid, he is on the pathway to happiness. The fakir here is very kind and he will cure the disease and protect all with love and kindness." The patient vomited blood every 5 minutes, but there was no vomiting in the presence of Baba. From the time Baba uttered the words of hope and mercy, the malady took a favorable turn. Baba asked him to stay in Bhima Bai's house, which was not a convenient and healthy place, but Baba's order had to be obeyed. While he was staying there, Baba cured him by 2 dreams. In the first dream, he saw himself as a boy suffering the severe pain of flogging, which he received for not reciting his Sawai poetry lesson before his classmaster. In the second dream, someone caused him intense pain and torture by rolling a stone up and down over his chest. With the pain thus suffered in the dream, his cure was complete and he went home. He then often came to Shirdi and gratefully remembering what Baba did for him, prostrated before him. Baba also did not expect anything from devotees but grateful remembrance, unchanging faith and devotion. People in the Maharashtra always celebrate Satyanarayana Puja in their homes every fortnight or month, but it was this Bhimji Patil who started a new Sai Satya Vrata Puja instead of Satyanarayan Vrata Puja in his house when he returned to his village. Bala Ganpat Shimpi. Another devotee of Baba by name Bala Ganpat Shimpi suffered much from a malignant type of malaria. He tried all sorts of medicines and decoctions, but they all went in vain. The fever did not abate a jot, and so he ran to Shirdi and fell on Baba's feet. Baba gave him a strange recipe, in this case as follows: give a black dog some morsels of rice mixed with curds in front of the Lakshmi temple. Bala did not know how to execute this recipe, but no sooner he went home than he found rice and curds. Mixing them together, he brought the mixture near the Lakshmi temple when he found there a black dog waving its tail. He placed the curds and rice before the dog, who ate it, and strange to say, Bala got rid of his malaria. Bapu Sahib Bhuti. Shriman Bapu Sahib Bhuti suffered once from dysentery and vomiting. His cupboard was full of patent drugs and medicines, but none of them had any effect. Bapu Sahib got very weak on account of purgings and vomiting, and therefore was not able to go to the masjid for Baba's darshan. Baba then sent for him and made him sit before him and said, "Now, take care, you should not purge any more." And waving his index finger, "The vomiting must also stop. Now, look at the force of Baba's words." Both the maladies took to their heels, disappeared, and Bhuti felt well. On another occasion, he had an attack of cholera and suffered from severe thirst. Dr. Pillai tried all sorts of remedies but could give no relief. He went to Baba and consulted him as to the drink that would allay his thirst and cure the disease. Baba prescribed an infusion of almonds, walnuts, pista, kind of dry fruit, boiled in sugared milk. This would be considered as a fatal aggravation of the disease by any other doctor or physician, but in implicit obedience to Baba's orders, the infusion was administered and, strange to say, the disease was cured. Alandi Swami. A Swami from Alandi, wishing
So is everything okay? What happened to Satwan? It's finished? You mute. We can't hear you. Sanjay?
Sairam Satwan?
She lost her
Satwan.
internet or something.
Okay, I'll continue. No problem.
Okay.
Alandi Swami, a Swami from Alandi wishing to take Baba's darshan, came to Shirdi. He suffered from a severe pain in his ear, which prevented him from getting the sleep. He was operated for this, but it served no purpose. The pain was severe, and he did not know what to do while he was returning. He came to take Baba's leave when Shama Madhavrao Deshpande requested Baba to do something for the pain in the Swami's ear. Baba comforted him, saying, Allah acha karega, God will do good. The Swami then returned to Pune and after a week sent a letter to Shirdi stating that the pain in his ear had subsided, though the swelling was there, and in order to get the swelling removed, he went to Mumbai for operation, but the surgeon, on examining the ear, said that no operation was then necessary. Such was the wonderful effects of Baba's words. Kaka Mahajani. Another devotee named Kaka Mahajani suffered once from diarrhea. In order that there should be no break in his services to Baba, Kaka kept a dambia pot with water in some corner of the masjid, and whenever there was a call, he would go out. As Sai Baba knew everything, Kaka did not inform him of his disease, thinking that Baba would, of his own cure it soon. The work of constructing the pavement in front of the masjid was permitted by Baba, but when the actual work was begun, Baba got wild and shouted out loudly. Everybody ran away, and as Kaka was also doing the same, Baba caught hold of him and made him sit there. In the confusion that followed, somebody left their small bag of groundnuts. Baba took a handful of groundnuts, rubbed them in his hand, and blew away the skins and gave the clean nuts to Kaka and made him eat them. Scolding and cleaning the nuts and making Kaka eat them went on simultaneously. Baba himself ate some of them. Then, when the bag was finished, Baba asked him to fetch water, as he felt thirsty. Kaka brought a pitcher full of water. Then Baba drank some water and made Kaka also drink it. Baba then said, "Now your diarrhea has stopped, and you may attend to the work of the pavement." In the meanwhile, other persons who had run away returned and started the work, and Kaka, whose motions had stopped, also joined them. The groundnuts medicine for diarrhea. According to current medical option, groundnuts would aggravate the disease and not cure it. The true medicine is this, as in other cases, was Baba's word. Dattapant of Harda. A gentleman from Harda by name of Dattapant suffered from stomachache for about 14 years. None of the remedies gave him any relief. Then, on hearing Baba's fame that he cures diseases by sight, he ran to Shirdi and fell at Baba's feet. Baba looked at him kindly and gave him blessings. When Baba placed his hand on his head and when he got Baba's udhi with blessing, he felt relieved and there was no further trouble about the malady. Towards the end of this chapter, 3 cases are cited in footnotes. Madhavrao Deshpande suffered from piles. Baba gave him decoction of Sonamukhi cenopods. This relieved him. Then, after 2 years, the trouble again recurred, and Madhavrao took the same decoction without consulting Baba. The result was that the disease aggravated, but later on it was cured by Baba's grace. Number 2, Kaka Mahajani's elder brother Gangadhar Pant suffered many years from stomach pain. Hearing Baba's fame, he came to Shirdi and requested Baba to cure it. Baba touched his belly and said, "God will cure it." From that time there was no stomach pain and he was completely cured. Number 3, Nana Sab Chandorkar also once suffered from intense stomach pain. He was restless the whole day and night. Doctors administered syringes which produced no effect. Then he approached Baba, who told him to eat barfi, a kind of sweet meat mixed with ghee. This recipe gave him complete relief. All these stories show that the real medicine that cured the various diseases permanently was Baba's word and grace, and not any medicines or drugs. Bow to Shri Sai. Peace be to all. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Sai, Sai Sai, Hare Hare, Hare Baba, Baba Baba, Hare Hare, Hare Data, Data Data, Hare Data, Data Data, Hare Data, Data Data, Hare Hare. अनंतकोटि ब्रह्मांड नायका राजाधिराज परब्रह्म श्री सच्चिदानंद सद्गुरु साईनाथ महाराज की जय. श्री साईनाथ अर्पणमस्तु. शुभम भवतु. ओम शांति शांति शांति. Sai Ram. See you all tomorrow, 7:30.
Thank you.
Bless.
Sai Ram.
God bless.
Thank you very much,
Yeah.
Sandhya Ben.
Sai Ram.
Sai Ram.
There's few of us, but it's only who's meant to be there. So it's all Baba's grace.
True. I won't be there tomorrow, but I'll be back on Sunday.
No problem.
Thank you, everybody, for reading.
Sai Ram.
Good night.
Thank you, Sandhya auntie.
Sai Ram.
Sai Ram.
Everyone.
Sai Ram.
Thank you, Sandhya.
Welcome. Sai Ram.
I just spoke.
Sai Ram.
Ta-da!
I just spoke
Sai
to
Ram. Sai Ram.
Nadia.